In Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball GT, Goku Black and Baby stand out as the greatest villains of their respective series. Possessing interesting backstories, cool designs, and strong motivations, these two characters stand near the top of the list of the best Dragon Ball villains of all time. But when it comes down to it, which of these two antagonists is superior? Well, in this video, we're going to break that down. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. And joining me today in this video is someone you've seen on my videos in the past.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Josh from Dragon Ball Nation.
Okay Josh, so in this video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at a number of different categories by which we're going to judge the different characters in order to determine which one of them is really the superior villain in the Dragon Ball franchise. And of course this is going to be a discussion about a Super character versus a GT character, so as we know that's not going to cause any kind of debating whatsoever among the Dragon Ball community, is it, Josh?
Not in the slightest.
You're right, I'm sure it won't. Okay, so let's first start out with the backstories of these two villains, which is one of the most interesting aspects of both of their characters. Now, when it comes down to Goku Black, of course, Goku Black was originally Zamasu, who is a Supreme Kai that used to be the North Kai, because apparently that somehow works in the 10th universe where you can take a North Kai and make him a Supreme Kai, but regardless, he had a very strong penchant for justice, and he was somebody who had a lot of fighting potential, which apparently is something that you consider when you're selecting a Supreme Kai, and that is why Gawasu made him his apprentice. On the other hand, we have Baby, who is a character that was an experiment created by the Tuffle people on planet Plant. And these Tuffle people were native to that planet when the Saiyans arrived, and then the Saiyans, led by King Vegeta, according to GT's timeline, were the ones who destroyed their race and took over the planet and called it Planet Vegeta, and Baby was basically their last-ditch effort to kind of get revenge upon the Saiyans. So, getting into that backstory aspect, Josh, who do you think has the better backstory out of these two characters?
For me, in terms of whose backstory I like more, it's tough because Baby Vegeta had a lot of things going for him, but as I'll get into more later, in terms of whose backstory I like more, I'm gonna have to give it to Goku Black, even though I like the backstory of Baby's, even though it's kind of a ripoff in a sense, or maybe an homage, some people say, but it really is kind of a ripoff of like Hachiaks, basically.
Yeah.
So we've seen it before in Dragon Ball, even though it was a non-canon film, but this is also a non-canon series, without sparking any debates in the comments, obviously, but I think it's kind of obvious at this point, right? Baby Vegeta's backstory is interesting. There's a real, motivation, which we'll get into later, obviously. We'll compare the motivations and stuff like that. But with Goku Black, I just feel like his backstory is filled out more. There was a lot better, in my opinion. I know not everyone likes the arc. People think it's some of the weakest parts of Super, besides the Resurrection F stuff, and maybe the retelling of Battle of Gods as well. I feel like the storytelling in the Future Trunks arc was pretty good in a lot of parts, and I liked a lot of Goku Black's backstory and his motivation, which again we'll get into. But just the twists and turns that happened in that story, and just kind of, Goku Black's really hype. That's kind of one of the main drives. He's such a popular character now in the series, right? Like, he's in everything at this point. He's in fighters and stuff, so he really is just a popular character, but there's just elements of the backstory that we'll get into later that I really enjoy myself more than Baby. But I do like Baby's backstory. It feels unique, even though it is still a ripoff, but it's just one of those things where there is such a clear motivation with him, especially with Baby Vegeta.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to Baby, he has a really interesting backstory that, as you said before, he is very much inspired by, if you want to say that, by Hachiak from Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans. And, going from that, it really is interesting how Baby turned out, because obviously Baby is a far superior version of Hachiak. He actually has motivations, which we're going to get into in a minute. But when it comes to Goku Black, I guess I've always been someone who is more into that kind of mythological backstory. Goku Black is a god. I've always been a fan of mythology and the idea of a god that goes evil and somebody who is kind of against mortals who are below him. So I guess I could definitely see that, and I might have to agree with you for that category too, in saying that Goku Black has a more interesting backstory, even though, Baby's is more grounded in science and is more directly related to Goku and Vegeta, but I guess you could kind of say that about Black attaining Goku's body.
One other thing we should mention when you're talking about the gods and stuff is one of the big hype moments for me was that we were finally getting a Makaio-shin, right? You're talking about gods turning evil. And we were waiting for like a real Makaio-shin in the series for like a while. There were all these theories about Deborah maybe a Makaio-shin and stuff like that, right? There's so many little lore elements, I guess almost fan service in a way, made for people that were more looking for, I guess, an evil god. So it was a new thing for us really with Goku Black's story. It was more unique than Baby for sure in terms of his origins and all of that. Much more unique in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely more unique to Dragon Ball, even though we have had similar ideas in the past with somebody like King Piccolo or Garlic Jr., but that also ties directly into Goku Black's motivation, so let's discuss his and Baby's right now. Now, Goku Black's motivations are of a higher order than pretty much every other Dragon Ball villain we've seen up until this point. Zamasu was a being who watched over all of the mortals that were below him. As a Supreme Kai, a basic god of creation, it was his job to look over the mortals and help to either guide them or at least watch them as their civilizations progressed, so that they could get a higher mortal level, I guess, if we're going to use stuff that comes after it, even though obviously Shin was really bad at that job in Universe 7, so maybe Gawasu was onto something, even though he was really stupid in picking Zamasu to replace him anyway. But anyway, Zamasu basically saw that mortals were a mistake of the gods, Their creation and their existence was something that was polluting the rest of the pure creation and the natural order of the universe itself. Because of that, and because of the fact that he saw the barbarity on that planet basically killing one another, even after they went forward in time 1,000 years. And then, of course, he met up with Goku, who, of course, wanted to fight him because he saw this guy. He's a big, strong guy, so I gotta fight him. And he embarrassed him in his own Supreme Kai realm, and he made his power as a god look inferior. So that led him to go about his Zero Mortal plan, which led him to steal Goku's body, go to future Trunks' timeline, team up with that Zamasu, and then spread their plague of destruction across all of the 12 universes, so that they could become the one true god of existence. Although, they kind of forgot about Zeno, but that's a story for another day. And when it comes to Baby, on the other hand, Baby, I feel like, even though it isn't as big of a plan as Goku Black and Zamasu, his might be a little bit more relatable and understandable, because Baby was essentially kind of like a weapon that was created by the Tuffles, so that he could wipe out the Saiyans, but also not just wipe them out, but replace them and make them and the other beings in the universe into Tuffles. And basically his goal was eventually to spread throughout the universe and to replace all of the people with his extinct people that were wiped out by the Saiyans. And obviously that sounds really bad, and it is, which is why he's a villain, but at the same time, you have, I guess, something that you can relate to him more on that level, because the fact that it's kind of his revenge for something that was an evil deed that was done to him and his people by the Saiyans. So, taking into account both of these backstories and both of these motivations, who do you think has the superior motivation in your eyes to the other?
Maybe seems biased, but I gotta go Goku Black because it just is a more interesting motivation that he was kind of humiliated. Like you said, he wants to eliminate all those that he deems inferior, which is really zero mortals. Just no more mortals on this earth, have it only be gods. But it kind of got to the point where, he did go around and killed all the Supreme Kais that were linked to the respective gods of destruction and all of that. So eventually it became to the point where it was just him and Goku Black. But I found that there was a lot more creativity with that, again, because it was more original. It hadn't really been done before in Dragon Ball. But these things about multiple timelines going on, all that stuff was great. But Baby's motivation was more justified, which I kind of liked about it, because, he's still a psychopath. Essentially, it was kind of the opposite of what Zamasu did, because he wasn't killing everyone. He was kind of bringing the Tuffles back. So he was kind of starting a race, even though he was taking over everyone's bodies, obviously. So in a sense, he was eliminating them, even though they were still there. So his was kind of not eliminating races, it was bringing his race back, which I liked that. It wasn't the same as what Hotjack had done or was trying to have done. So that's what I liked about Baby, mainly. But I feel like in terms of motivation, again, Super, it just seemed to be more coherent. It seemed to flow better. Maybe that's just better writing talent, all of that stuff, having Toriyama outlining the story in some capacity, however much he did outline. I feel like it just worked better with Goku Goku Black just, not because it's newer, just had, I think, more talent to it.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from there. For me, there's pros and cons on both sides. When it comes to Baby, the biggest problem I had with him, at least later on, was that he started to kill his own people towards the end. And despite the fact that he was growing in power, he was actually kind of regressing as a villain and turning into more of a generic evil villain. Eventually, he started saying, I don't care, I'll attack the Earth, I'll do this, I'll do that,
Right, which totally broke the whole character.
Yeah. But with Goku Black, on the other hand, he was more consistent in his actions, but at the same time, there are some kind of big plot holes surrounding him. For example, if Goku Black wanted to get rid of all the mortals and all the gods, then why didn't he use the Super Dragon Balls that can grant any wish he wants to obliterate all of them in an instant, why didn't
Where's the fun in that?
I guess so. I guess that's what it maybe comes down to, that he was more of a sadist and a psychopath. So.
Right, well, especially the Goku Black himself, and rather than just Zamasu, because being Goku's body obviously had altered his mental state, really, I would say. I mean, just the way he acts was definitely a bit different being Goku's body, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see that difference between the two of them. Although I like the fact that if we're going to count Zamasu as the two beings, but also the same one, how he does have the motivations of wanting to get stronger, but then also the motivations of wanting to be immortal. And then I guess you could say that Goku Black counts for both Zamasu himself and then the merged form of them. So right. I guess that, two heads are better than one in this case.
I think it's fair to talk about all the forms because, even though Goku Black and Zamasu are different, they are still Zamasu. It's kind of just really each are, a side of a coin, really. One went down one path, decided to be immortal, and the other wanted power. They are the same character. It's altered because of the paths they took.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into some of the other aspects that typically make a villain really cool in the eyes of the audience. Those would come down to their abilities and, their overall design. So let's first get into the designs. And obviously, when it comes to both characters, they are in fact body swappers. Baby is a parasite by nature who took over the body of a bunch of different people, and his most iconic body that he took over was Vegeta. But of course, he does, much like Zamasu, have his own form, which is separate from that. So who would you say is the better designed character, and who would you say has the better powers and abilities overall? Because again, like I said, Baby's a parasite, and Zamasu is someone who takes over Goku's body, but he also has other abilities of his own, such as the energy sword. And then when he becomes merged Zamasu, he has the weird bird aura thing and, the rays of justice and stuff. Who do you think has the better skill set and the better, I guess, overall design?
I mean, Mike, I don't even know if it's honestly close, to be honest with you. I've always found Baby to look goofy. Real quick touch on the voice acting. I like it in Japanese. It's fine. The English dub sounds goofy. It really does. It just sounds so goofy. That is more voice acting rather than design. But even his designs, especially that middle form between his final, Super Baby 2, it's those big shoulder blades. He doesn't look cool. Grade 8 Baby is kind of cool looking, almost. But I mean, even his parasite form, it's just not doing it for me. It's very weird looking. Goku Black is just Goku, maybe a little bit slimmer looking just from the design, but obviously a slightly darker skin tone, I think, just to distinguish him a little bit better. He's got that shading to him. I love the design of the gi for him, though. I love it. And quickly, Merge Zamasu's design was great. If we're going to talk about him, just the way those two bodies combined was fantastic. Baby Vegeta, though, the Revenge Death Ball, it's just a ball that a million characters have thrown before. Yes, he can possess people, which is kind of cool, but you know what? It's not that interesting to me if he's just doing it to random people. It's only interesting when he's doing it to main characters. It's not interesting against civilians. I don't care about them. I don't. Goku Black has the key sword, like you said. I don't even think it's close. The divine lasso he uses, oh my god. So iconic at this point in the series now. It's in all of these games. Everyone loves the move. It is his attack. Him and Zamasu, when they did their own version of a giant ball attack, like a Revenge Death Ball, was way better than anything Baby had done because they both combined their powers. They raised their hands up, slammed that ball into the ground, and it was devastating. I mean, it's such a good scene. Yeah, and like I said, the key sword is so simple, but just the way he moves, the way he stabs Vegeta with it, all the shards he could shoot out of it, the scythe that he rips out of his hand, the multiple Goku Blacks that he brings out of other dimensions or whatever. I don't even think it's close. I really don't. And, I might sound biased, but at least for this section of the video, I don't know anyone that can dispute the fact that Goku Black just had a way better moveset. Maybe you like Baby's design more, but Baby's moveset and just abilities were not anywhere near as interesting, in my opinion. It's not even close for me.
Once again, here I'm kind of split in different aspects. When it comes to designs for me. Like, I actually do kind of lean towards Baby. You know, even though in some earlier forms, especially like the form you point out, it doesn't really look as good. Like, I think that Baby's final form of Baby Vegeta, and then the Golden Ozaru, and then like even his form, like before Goku blasts him into his son, his, I guess, matured form, I really like the look of those. Whereas with Goku Black, you know, obviously he's drawn more evilly. He has like the Anakin clothing, you know, which is something that I liked how it seemed kind of Star Wars influenced in terms of his outfit. But, you know, when he is Super Saiyan Rose, sure, it looks cool, but for me, it's kind of just like, you know, Super Saiyan Blue, but it's pink instead, or purple, you know? So I kind of go more towards design in Baby's favor, but aside from the fact that he can, like, go into people like a parasite and he has regeneration stuff, I definitely think that Goku Black's moves, they're more aesthetically pleasing. The only design of his I don't really like is when Merged Zamasu becomes the big bulky form. Like, I think it looks slow, like, kind of, you know, bad at that point, but I feel like before that, he looked good. It's just once he gets part of him blown off, and then, you know, he becomes a big bulky Cell or Piccolo kind of form, you know, I'm not really a big fan of that, but in terms of, like, overall movesets, I feel like he was more designed to kind of be in fighting games, or more like to have a more pleasing moveset compared to Baby. The move
Very
I do
flashy.
I do like Baby's Revenge Death Ball, because the aura and appearance of it are pretty cool, and with it being kind of like an evil version of the Spirit Bomb. Aside from that, obviously Goku Black has a cooler looking moveset, and I think that's definitely something that's been shown in fighting games since then.
Especially Dragon Ball FighterZ and Dokkan Battle, for anyone that plays those. I mean, oh, beautiful looking.
So let's now get into what is arguably the most important thing when it comes down to villains, and that would be accomplishments. Who has the greater accomplishments out of these two? Of course, when we look at Goku Black and Zamasu, what they did was they killed all of the gods in Future Trunks' timeline, and eventually they merged together and became the timeline itself after Trunks destroyed their corporal or physical body. And of course, they also killed Goku and his family in another timeline, which is Goku Black's original timeline. On the other hand, Baby was able to infect all of the people of the Earth, taking over Vegeta's body and turning all of Goku's friends and family against him, as well as wishing back his destroyed planet. Now, even though both of them accomplished part of their goals, neither of them really achieved 100% of their plans, because Baby didn't take over everyone and defeat Goku, and Goku Black and Zamasu were still obliterated by Zeno when he erased the timeline. So overall, in terms of their accomplishments, I mean, this might not be much of a comparison at all, Josh, but who do you think has the superior accomplishments out of the two different villains here?
Anyone that knows me knows I like GT quite a bit. I do like Baby as a character, and I do like the fights he's in. And did he really accomplish anything in the end? I mean, everything was fine at the end, right? Like,
pretty much.
Goku Black, I'll put it down like this. Everything that happened with him, even though Trunks had a happy ending, even though he's in a universe or a timeline with our Trunks and Maya in it, right? The course of events that Goku Black took, and then having to have Zeno come out and destroy a universe, you might not say that's an accomplishment by him. But let me tell you something. His course of actions got a whole timeline just destroyed. Trillions and trillions of lives, even though they weren't all done by his hand. Remember how many lives he has probably taken just as Goku Black.
Tons and tons of them.
I don't think it's a comparison. Even if you say he indirectly helped get that timeline taken out, there were so many lives that were just obliterated. And Baby Vegeta, in the end, did nothing. So I don't think it's close. I don't think it's very close, no.
You know,
that's not fanboy. That's on that point. I mean, that's just the information that's right there. It's not really a debate at all.
Yeah, I would have to agree there because, again, even though both of them were eventually defeated in one form or another, just looking at what Goku Black and Zamasu did by destroying an entire timeline.
Even without what Zamasu had done, they had already taken so many lives on their own.
They just swept through the multiverse like a plague. So yeah, yes. I definitely have to go with them. They accomplished more than any other Dragon Ball villain, even ones who are more powerful.
And especially taking out all the gods of destruction. I mean, yeah, okay, Baby, what do you have? Oh, what's that? Oh, nothing? Because everything was fine in the end? Okay. All right, yep.
Very true. So
he did run away. That's what he did. He ran away like a little girl. That's what he did at the end.
And then he died in the same place that Broly did, except for the new one. Maybe we'll talk about him someday and compare the two of them, even though I don't think it's going to be much of a comparison. Mike? Yes, Josh, from Dragon Ball Nation, there is. But with that being said, let's get into a final category theory here, which of course is something which is far more subjective than anything else, and is something which is probably also going to cause the most debate out of everyone who's going to be watching this, and that is power. So between the two of these characters, Josh, who do you think is the most powerful out of the two?
I'm not even going to waste my time trying to break down any numbers here. It's Baby Vegeta, and let me tell you exactly why. Just kidding, it's Goku Black, because, you know, just looking at it, just the way Goku Black presents himself, just the power and the feats we see out of him, and just knowing that Goku and Beerus in the beginning of the series, basically of Super, were like destroy the universe with their clashes. It's just something that GT does not represent well at all with feats, and it's something that's always going to be hard to compare. But just by looking at them and having seen both shows enough to be able to say that Goku Black just seems like a much more powerful foe. I don't feel like it's very close, honestly, at this point. I've made videos arguing GT in the past, but just as the show goes on and on and on, it just gets more obvious that Super characters are just stronger. That's just how they're written. They want them to be the strongest. In things like Dragon Ball Heroes, they try to make Super Saiyan 4 and Blue seem equal, but at this point, I mean, Goku Black was so foreboding. He had so much power. Baby just didn't show enough for me. It's a hard thing to really break down because they're so different of series. You know, you can't compare them so easily. There's no numbers to really go off of unless we're going to do mental gymnastics and do things that the creators never even thought of. So at that point, it's not even fair to compare them in a real sense. But I just have that feeling and that vibe that Goku Black is just made to be essentially what was the strongest villain at that point when he was introduced in any of the series. So,
but Dragon Ball Nation, don't you know that GT takes place after Super?
That is my response.
But yeah, like, I would have to agree with you because, like, it's very obvious just looking at feats that everyone in Super right now is so much more powerful than their counterparts in GT. Like, Goku Black and Zamasu would just annihilate almost everyone in GT, like, except for maybe two separate characters who I can think of. But even then, like, I don't even know if the top tier characters could stand much of a chance compared to, like, just the feats alone of what we've seen from them.
Right. GT just never represented feats very well. And like I said earlier, anyone that knows me knows I like GT. Super Saiyan 4 Goku is probably my favorite thing in Dragon Ball. Especially, like, I think it's Ultra Full Power Super Saiyan 4 Goku's what he's called when he's fighting Omega after he absorbs energy.
Yeah, he has a great design, to say the least.
Yes. I mean, it's so unique. It's complex and simple at the same time. But, you know, Baby Vegeta, I mean, we didn't see much of him. I think, like, comparing Omega to someone from Super is an easier comparison, which we're not going to do here, but you got a vibe of more of what Omega could do.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Omega is one of my favorite villains, even though he was barely in this series. That's how much I like some of the GT stuff. I just thought he was an awesome character, design-wise especially. He's just a tank, really. But, yeah, I mean, it's just Baby Vegeta just wasn't well represented in terms of power. He was powerful. I mean, he was mud-stomping Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who, I mean, base Goku in GT was like Gotenks level, basically. So Super Saiyan 3 Goku, dumb strong, no doubt about it. But compared to Super Saiyan Blue Goku, no.
Yeah, I definitely...
Sorry, it's not. And guess what? Power doesn't matter. But we're going to talk about here. If you like Baby more, power should not have an impact on it, right, Mike? Because that's just not the way to look at these series.
Yeah, we were just mostly including that here for fun. But at the end of the day, like, just going on feats, obviously everyone in GT, aside from maybe Omega Shenron and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and then Goku at the end of the 100 years, like, those are the only comparable.
And Grandma Pan, don't forget.
That's true. Literally the only way that I could see characters in GT being more powerful at this point is if they do say that Super does take place before GT and GT is still within the continuity. But obviously at this point, so much that contradicts GT has happened in Super that I think that they've just 100% just gotten rid of it. But then again, my pessimistic side is always telling me Toei's gonna change that. They're gonna make GT canon. Just wait. But
you never know what's gonna happen nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, Broly's canon now, quote-unquote canon, I should say. But the fact of the matter is that I think based on feats, it's definitely Goku Black is stronger. So looking at all these different categories and comparing these two villains side by side, I think that Goku Black would have to come out as the victor between the two of them as the superior villain. Whether or not that comes down to the writing of those working on the different shows at the time, or just how Goku Black was meant to be as a character compared to Baby, I think at the end of the day that Goku Black probably comes out as being better, even though he is more of like a fan servicey character at the end of the day, because of course he is the evil Goku, but you know, he accomplished more, he has a cooler looking moveset, and you know, maybe his motivations aren't as relatable, but they still are like very interesting in and of themselves. You know, it's that kind of Paradise Lost idea of the god turning evil or the angel falling to earth, you know. Although Baby is still one of the best Dragon Ball villains overall, who likely had some influence on Goku Black, and is by far one of the best parts of Dragon Ball GT. So I can certainly understand why many people would go with him. So let us know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Who do you think is the superior villain between these two? Also, make sure to check out Dragon Ball Nation in the end screen and description. I'm sure he'll upload eventually. Fingers crossed here.
It'll happen. I don't know when, but I mean, I'm not quitting. It's just the vacation has been very nice.
And if you're new to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications so that you can see all of my videos right away when they come out. And make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.